First, I'm going to say a big, big thank you for everyone who reached out to me after listening to episode 10 of the podcast. I know that it was a bit different, but the overwhelming response that I got literally blew my mind. You guys are so kind, and you shared so many stories with me that really just helped me to connect with all of you. I think episode 10 was the only episode to date that I did not listen to after I recorded it. And I did not watch the YouTube version because, y'all, if I did the ugly cry in that YouTube version, I don't want no parts of it, okay? I don't want to know about it. I didn't want to see myself. I didn't even want to hear myself. So, but I just wanted to say thank you, really, from the bottom of my heart. You guys are amazing. All right. Welcome to episode 11. I can't believe I've done 11 of these already. Episode 11 of Business Shit. I am your host, Mimi G, and today's topic is size don't matter. All right. We all know that that ain't true for some things, and I won't say what things they are. But when it comes to sponsorships, that is a very true statement. Size does not matter, and I'm referring to your audience. So I get asked about sponsorships, oh my God, so many times. Like, I think it might be one of the questions I get asked about the most is, how do you start working with sponsorships? What can I do? How do you approach? All of those sort of questions. And, you know, I've sort of been doing this little series where I'm talking about certain things along the episodes. Episode 9, I mentioned that I want to talk about how to launch a product and then how to market and promote that product. And so today's episode was going to be about launching a product. And then I realized that whether you're an influencer or you're a brand, you need to understand how sponsorship relationships work. Because when you launch your product, you want to already know that stuff. So I didn't want to skip ahead without giving you all the information that I know, just from my own experience, obviously, on working with sponsorships and working with influencers. Because when I first started as a blogger, I worked with sponsors, still work with sponsors, still. But now as a business, as a brand myself, I work with influencers when I'm launching a product. So I know both sides. And so I thought it would be really great if I could share some of that. So are you ready? Let's talk some shit. All right. So I've worked with just over 300 sponsors to date. And so I've been able to gather a lot of information from both sides that I think is really useful for you to know. You know, it's not really the same as it was when I first started, and the competition is incredibly fierce. So there's a lot more that you need to consider now. You know, I use influencers when I launch my products. When I launched Business Shit, the podcast, I used influencers that I know and that I trust and that I know their influence to talk about it, to listen to the episode and give their true opinions about what they thought, so that I could reach their audience as well. Because as a blogger, I understand the side of the sponsor, the brand, and as an influencer, I understand the other side. And you know, sometimes there are paid sponsorships, sometimes there are sponsorships that are not paid, but bring value. And I'm going to talk about that. When I approach influencers, I use both. Sometimes the approach is, you know, I think that working with me can bring awareness to your brand, to your socials, can bring an entire new audience to you, can help grow whatever it is that you're doing. And sometimes that's the added benefit, you know, the alignment with my brand. And sometimes, depending on the influencers that I'm approaching, I know that they're at a certain level that I'm not going to come at them with, hey, align yourself with me. I know it's more about, I respect your influence in the community. I respect how your audience responds to you. And so I want to pay you for your influence, because I think that it's important to understand the value on both sides. You know, it's not so much about quantity anymore. It's more about quality. What I mean is, before, when people would talk about sponsorships, it's like, oh, you should have this many followers and you should have, you know, this much going on, and you should be able to, bring this much, whatever it is, to the brand. But that's sort of changed now because, I have over 1 million followers across my social media channels. And, I have great engagement. I have incredibly supportive followers. I have a pretty strong influence in my communities, with receipts to back that shit up. But that doesn't always make me first in line all the time. So, you might have a much smaller audience. You might not have as much engagement. You might not have as large an influence. But there are aspects of what you do that might be appealing to that brand and that might fit that campaign. So it's not always about the numbers. There are a lot of things that brands consider. So I'm going to go through some of them. A brand might be considering demographics. They might be considering marital status. Are you married? Are you single? Do you have children? Do you have pets? Do you have hobbies? What those hobbies are. Also preferred platforms. It depends. As a business owner, as a brand, I might be trying to promote something strongly on Instagram. And let's say that your following is bigger on Facebook. So you might not fit within those specs that I'm looking for. Also aesthetics, alignment to their brand. How do you fit within their brand? Does it look the same? Smaller communities engage more. So, a lot of times people think that, if you're a huge fashion blogger, that it makes sense to do this fashion campaign. I'm going to talk about that in just a second, but that's not always true. Small communities and something sort of niche where I would fall into, right, the DIY sort of community, we are very much engaged with each other. So when a brand is looking for somebody to work with, they may prefer to work with smaller communities, more focused communities, because there's greater engagement, greater sharing, and so obviously greater conversations about whatever the product is. The other thing that I mentioned earlier is, not having a large audience doesn't make you less valuable. Actually, sometimes, especially now, might make you more valuable because micro-influencers tend to have better overall engagement. You could come across bloggers or influencers on Instagram who have huge followings, and then you'll look under a comment, under a post, and they have very little comments or very little engagement. That is actually a bad sign for a brand because it lets them know that their product isn't going to get the reach that they want, right? Because it's going to get seen, but the engagement is really what matters and really what I think the brands overall look for. I know it's definitely what I look for. So one of the other things is consider the not so obvious, and I mentioned this a couple seconds ago. So recruiting a well-known fashion blogger for a new fashion collection campaign seems like a no-brainer. Like, oh, well, she's super popular here, so it would make total sense for her to do this. And that's not always the case. Especially now, there have been a lot of examples of brands using the not so obvious influencer to sort of break into another area that maybe they're not reaching. And so by using somebody that doesn't necessarily fall into that, whatever that little circle is, oh, she's a fashion blogger and she's popular and she's all these different things, might not be what they're looking for. That's sort of the easy way. If I have something that I want to post or I want to share or I want to promote, and I put it in the hands of somebody who I think is already really great and big and large in this platform, I might not get the amount of engagement that I want, and I might not get the right sort of eyes because all of those people who are in fashion already probably saw that product, right? I want to get to the people who might not see it. And so going for somebody who's less obvious might do the trick, which is why micro-influencers are really popular right now. Also, I wanted to also mention that in the not so obvious realm is a really great way that brands have started reaching more organic audiences by using not so obvious influencers. So Be mindful of what you're posting, what you're sharing, and what your socials look like, because you might not necessarily think that you might fall into these other areas where opportunities can come to you, but you actually might be just the person that they're looking for. Another thing to consider is that, brands are always watching. It's sort of their job, right? So the media agencies that work with the brands are always looking for influencers. They're watching to see what your past collaborations have been, the quality of your work, which, I I have issues with a lot of what I see, because I think that it sort of devalues other bloggers when people don't do good work or don't provide quality work, because it makes it harder for somebody to charge large amounts of money for something when other people are doing it for pennies and then not doing really great quality work. They're also looking at past engagement. So, there are brands who will go through your timelines, who will look to see other sponsorships that you may have done, and then look for the engagement to see how it went. And then, of course, ease of work. So, you don't want to be difficult, just like, in any business, you want to be pleasant to work with. And those are all things that they look for. One of the things that I really hate when I hear people say is, fake it till you make it. That's always really bothered me, because that just makes you a phony. So the more you fake it, the less you make it. So, for me, it's like, stop trying to see and do, what Susie over on so-and-so is doing. Like, who gives a shit? Nobody cares what Susie's doing on so-and-so. Okay, you have to be authentic to you, to your voice, to your brand. And we've talked about this a bunch of times over different episodes of Business Shit. But I bring it back up because if you stay authentic to your own personal brand, then when brands come to look for you, they know exactly what they're going to get, right? They're not going to be confused. So brands can sniff out forced content, and they can always tell when the engagement isn't genuine. So, for example, if you don't engage normally on your social media, right? And then when you do a sponsored post, all of a sudden you're commenting and responding to people, brands know you're full of shit because you don't do it on every other post. You just do it on sponsored content, and that's not what they're looking for. They really do want authentic people that have their own sort of point of view and stay true to who they are. Being number one isn't your goal, right? Being different is your goal. If you can be different, then that will always set you apart. Another thing is to be about your shit, because your overall attitude and professionalism affect your business relationships all the time, even in working with sponsorships, at school, at your job, wherever it is. One of the things that is most important is to always be on time and to be flexible, because there are times where, brands are constantly looking at data, and, you might get hired to do a sponsored post and then something changes, or the date needs to change, or they request something, or you have to be very flexible. You have to be willing to do a bit more, and obviously to accommodate. So these are all sort of things that the brands look for, but these are things that you can do. So the first is you have to create creative content. So that means having amazing photography. If you're not good at photography, sign up for an online photography class. I did that years ago when I first started blogging. I didn't know how to use my DSLR. I was looking at these buttons like, I don't know what the hell I'm pushing. And I got this online course. I don't remember what it's called, S.H.E.T or something. And I learned how to use my camera, and it took me a couple of hours, and I don't know, $30 or something online. And I learned how to do this, how to use my camera so that I could take better pictures. You have to have clear and interesting video. So if a brand hires you to do a video campaign, you have to be good on video. You have to be creative. You have to be able to do storytelling, which is so important in sponsored content, because they want it to be organic. They want it to speak to your specific audience. And the only way to do that is to be good at storytelling, to be able to relay whatever the product is in a message that is going to resonate with your audience. And then also you have to be relatable, right? I mean, you have to be relatable to your audience, which is why it's so important to be authentic, because if you always stay authentic, then being relatable is second nature. Also, you need to really compete in this area because brands want to work with content creators that basically bring life to their product. When we get a sponsorship for a new product, me and Nora sit down and we're like, okay, how can we showcase this product? How can we talk about it in a way that's not fake as hell, and that is going to engage your audience and that you're going to be excited about, which is also why I don't take sponsorships from things that I have no emotional connection to or that I just simply don't like or use, because then trying to talk to you about it is going to sound fake because I don't really use it or I don't like it or I'm not excited about it. So I got a sponsorship request one time for a lot of money to do a tailgate thing with football and Smirnoff. And I was like, first of all, I don't give a shit about football. Football fans don't hate me, but I just don't. I don't get it. I don't understand it. I sit there and watch it. Norris tries to explain it to me. He really does, but I don't understand. And I don't drink Smirnoff, so I wasn't going to sit there tailgating in a parking lot with some football jersey on, drinking Smirnoff, try to talk to my audience about why I'm doing this. That didn't work. So, I have to turn down certain things because I don't feel passionate about them. The other thing that you can control is max out your effort. Do a little bit more than asked, especially in the beginning. I always made sure that I added a little something. Maybe, even now when we get Norris sponsored content, throw in a little extra story on IG or throw in a little extra IG post or a little Facebook push or something, because it lets the brand know that you care. Maybe you created really great content and you want to show more than one picture. Don't think, oh, I'm not going to post it because they didn't pay me for it. Just think, I'm going to post it and share it because it's going to show them, that I'm really excited about working with them. And that's really, the whole point. Then there's working with brands and knowing, the value versus money. So the first thing is to know that, what is your brand? Where is your brand, I should say? Are you just starting out? Have you been doing it for a while? And is this a business or a hobby? These are things you need to know when you want to work with brands, because you need to know if you're working in kind or you're working for money. And I'm going to explain a little bit about that. So let's say that you I'm going to talk about DIY because that's my field. Let's say you're a DIYer and you are looking for free products or you're looking for perks with a brand that you like, right? Maybe you're a quilter and you want somebody to send you a bunch of rotary cutters or scissors or rulers or whatever. That might not necessarily be your business. Maybe it's just something that you want to get as an added perk because you use the brand's products, right? So it doesn't always have to be a business. It can just be maybe you're a hobbyist and you want to, get products from the brands that you already use. And so you would still use the sort of same guidelines that I'm sharing with you here, whether it's for business or if you're just doing it as a hobby. But if it is a business, there are things that you want to know. So working in kind has its benefits. That means that there's a mutual benefit and it's not cash, okay? So you might get free products, which is always really great. And, depending on what that product is, it might be valuable to you. So, if somebody wants to send you a new t-shirt and you post it for free, you're like, okay, that's not really of great value to me. But let's say it's, I've gotten mattresses, like $8,000 mattresses, brand new, delivered to my house so I could talk about this mattress. Okay, that's valuable to me. I could use a mattress, and an $8,000 mattress is going to be real good. So there are different benefits that you might want to consider. Also, there's travel. I've been to numerous places. Vacations. They flew me and my entire family, kids and everything, to New Orleans for 7 days, all expense paid, plus travel money, plus food, plus everything while we were there. That was of great value. Brand mentions. that can be very valuable. So maybe let's say they're not paying you, but they're going to put you on their social media. And let's say their social media has millions of followers. That's a whole new audience that gets to see you. That's you being placed in front of an audience that could possibly now follow you. And obviously that is of great value. So for me, like I mentioned earlier, sometimes my approach to influencers that I'm working with is, hey, if you align yourself with me, I will place you in front of my audience. I will give you great exposure. I will mention you, tag you, etc. And those things can be very valuable because, if I mention something, people are going to go follow. And so you just have to know what is valuable to you. Also, it could be, let's say you're just starting out. And so when you start out, you do a lot of things in kind. I know that I did. And that's okay until you know when the value isn't quite matching what you bring to the table. That's when things change. But until then, it can help bring credibility to you. And it can help build your work experience so that when brands approach you and they're like, hey, do you have something you can show us that you've done with another brand? You have something to show. And then obviously there's the money, right? You want to get paid. And money is, one of those things that if you're doing great work and you know that you can bring something to that brand by means of your audience or your engagement or your influence, then by all means you should be charging for that. So, the first thing I would tell you is to develop a post rate. And that includes a rate for your blog posts. With social media amplification, which means if you do your blog post, then you're going to post a link on your Instagram or your Facebook or your Twitter. You should have a rate for your Instagram post. You should have a rate for a Facebook post. You should have a rate for your Twitter. You should have a rate for all three together. You should have a rate for YouTube videos. Normally, I always charge a lot more for my YouTube videos than I do for my blog posts because it takes me more time to film and edit and do all of that stuff. And then you should have a rate for your IG lives or your Facebook lives because that's a whole other thing that now we've been given, which just gives us another opportunity to charge for the content that we're creating for these brands. But when you're putting together your rate, you need to take into account your total audience and the content quality and be honest. A lot of what we see now are beautifully curated photos, people who really take a lot of time, put in a lot of effort, just like me and Norris do, on creating, exceptional content for the brands that we work with. And so if you don't have the means to do that, then you have to take that into account when you're putting together your rate or level up on your knowledge, right? So learn more about what it is that you need to improve so that you can charge more for your content. So some of the questions I asked is, how do I handle when brands approach me? So there's usually 3 questions. I'll get an email from a media agency that's working with whatever brand, and they'll tell me usually, just a bit of details in the email, what it is, and if I'm interested. I always have the same questions. What's the scope of work? What's the budget? And I'm never afraid to give what my rate is. So a lot of times in the email, it'll say, this brand is looking for you to speak about this new product, and they want you to do a blog post with social media amplification, and the rate is $1,500. And I will immediately say, I'd love to work with the brand, but this is what my rate is, which is not $1,500, is a lot more than that. And then just wait for them to respond. And the thing that I found, and I found this when I have to appear at brand functions or events and I'm around other influencers, I noticed that people don't like to talk about what they charge for things. I don't know why. I know that, sometimes it's a private thing, you don't be telling everybody what you charge for things. But I think when, privately, when you're having conversations with influencers, if you were to ask me, hey, Mimi, I'm looking to work with sponsors and I don't know what to charge. What do I charge? I'll tell you what I charge, and based upon your audience size, what you bring to the table, the level of engagement, influence that you can have, and that you can produce for this brand, then you would, obviously match your rate to that. So your rate might not necessarily match my rate. But that's okay. You have to do it according to what you can do for the brand. But if I don't even tell you, if I don't even give you a guideline, how's anybody ever going to know? And so I remember being at this event one time. I think it was for Old Navy. I'm not too sure. And I was talking to an influencer. I won't mention what her name is. And I remember that we were talking about something, and I asked her, what she had charged to be there that day. And she told me, and I was, first of all, I was stunned because I knew the influencer and I knew what her following and engagement was. And I had charged 3 times that, and they had paid me to be at that same event doing the same exact thing that she was doing. So I told her. And the reason I told her is because it helps our business, because she should be charging more for what she was doing. And I felt like she should be compensated for what she was doing. But if I didn't tell her, she would have no idea. She was actually stunned when I told her what I was charging to be at that same event. But I think if we don't help each other, then we're never going to know, right? And then, some brands will know that, they can come to you and that you're going to charge a lot less. And so some people might charge a lot more. And depending on, that whole you get what you pay for, some brands appreciate that and some brands don't. But I think that the conversation needs to be had, even if it's, like I said, privately. The one thing that I want you to understand is that you can't be afraid to ask for monetary compensation, and you can't be afraid to negotiate. So let's say that the rate that they sent is too low. Then you just respond and you tell them, this sounds great. I would love to do this. I would love to participate in this campaign. This is my rate. Is it in the budget? Let me know. I guarantee you 9 times out of 10, they will come back. They're not going to sit back and be like, we're not going to respond to her because she asked for more money. No, that's not at all what's in their mind. They know your value. Trust me, they know your value. As a business owner and a brand, I know your value. So we're going to immediately say, hey, okay, we want to work with her. This is her rate. Let's see if we have it in the budget to accommodate. Because that's how it works. It's a give and take. So don't be afraid to ask for that. I've been paid $25,000 for one single IG post. $25,000 for one IG post. And then I've done an IG post for $700 because the one that was $700 had great value. I wanted to align myself with that brand. I wanted to be visible on their socials, and that brought great value to me. So it really just depends on what you at the moment think is valuable versus the cash value of what you're doing. Another thing that I wanted to talk about is, pitching yourself. So when people ask me, well, how do I approach a sponsor? The very first thing is to be clear in your request, right? Don't overpromise. So don't tell the brand that you're going to bring them this amount of sales or you're going to get this many people to come to their site. Don't overpromise. Lay out the mutual benefits because that's really important. It's beneficial to you to align yourself with the brand. Maybe you like the brand. Maybe you respect the brand. Maybe you currently use the brand. Let them know. And then express why you would be a great partner because they want to know. They might not know who you are. So you need to let them know who you are and why you would be a good fit. And if you have it, show great examples of work that you've already done, which is really great because if you, let's say, are not a huge influencer or you don't have a large enough audience or you don't have a lot of work right now, if you're doing work in kind, then that can give you, like I said, credibility and can give you a chance to put together sort of your, blogger portfolio. And then, if you don't hear back, it's okay. So, there are a lot of reasons why you might not hear back. One is the media agencies get pitched all the time, constantly by influencers wanting to work with them. So it's not you. It's just maybe they're busy or maybe you're just not a good fit or maybe your approach might not be working. Maybe your request and your social proof don't match. So let me give you an example. I've seen this actually quite a bit. So I started the Business Shit podcast. Now, I've done things on business for years. I did the Passion to Profit tour. I've done online courses. I've done all kinds of things. So although I'm in the DIY world, I've gotten to a point where I do now speak on business and how to grow a business, start a business, monetize a business, all those different areas. But if you're a fashion blogger, let's say, and you start pitching to speak as a financial expert, and they go to your socials or your blog, and they don't see nothing that has to do with you being a financial expert, well, your request and your social proof don't match. But maybe that's something that you're trying to work on, right? Maybe that's another area of your blog or your business that you're trying to develop, which is why I have separate accounts for different things, right? So obviously I have my Instagram for business shit. So if I'm pitching something for business or for me to be a speaker, I'm not going to send them to my Mimi G Style Instagram. I'm going to send them to my business shit Instagram so that they can see that, and then obviously follow the trail back to me, right? Because it all leads sort of in a circle. But you have to make sure that whatever it is that you're pitching matches whatever it is that you're currently doing. And then, like I said, don't take it personal. Sometimes brands evolve really quickly. Things change. They're always looking at stats. And so you might be a good fit one day and then next month not be a good fit. And then sometimes I will say that sponsorships, they come in droves. I did Old Navy almost every month, sometimes twice a month for over a year. And then all of a sudden, Old Navy stops calling. It's not personal to me. I didn't do anything wrong. I just know that, there are a ton of influencers, and I might have fit that campaign for however long it ran because of maybe how I look, or that I had children, or that I was working out, or that I live in Los Angeles, or whatever the reasons were that they had chosen me for that year campaign, maybe no longer applied for the following year. So Old Navy didn't call. I don't take it personal. It's just the way things go, and you have to understand that, right? 2017, I think I had like 16 sponsorships in the month of December. It was insane. I'll never do that again. But this year I can already tell I'm not going to have as many as I had the previous year. And it's okay. It's not personal. It's just the way the game is. And you have to be okay with knowing that. Brands will find you. This I know to be very true. Brands will find you. If you're doing all the right things, you have good social engagement, you have a decent size audience, you do good work, you have great photography, you have a good point of view, the brands do find you because the media agencies are constantly looking for new influencers. At some point or another, you're going to get an email from some media agency asking about working with a brand. And this is when you're going to pull up episode 11, okay? You're going to listen to all of it, and then you're going to respond to that email. So one of the things that I get asked is, how do I find them? How do I find these brands? How do I reach out if you want to pitch yourself? Well, for me, I used to go to their social media sites, right? So I would go to their Facebook pages, I would go to their Instagram pages, and I would send messages that way. Now, today's question is actually how I started working with sponsorships. So I'm going to talk about that. And in that, I say that I never pitched myself for my blog. I was very fortunate in that the blog sort of grew rather quickly, that the brands sort of found me, the agency started calling, and I didn't ever have to really pitch myself. The only time that I've actually pitched is when I was doing the conferences or doing my own events, and I was pitching to work with brands for them to either sponsor the events that I was doing, provide swag bag gifts or whatever it was, or sponsorship dollars for the events. And in that, I was like, well, how do I reach this company? And I found, well, I'm going to go email them on Facebook. I'm going to go send them a message on Instagram. Because what you have to realize is that the people who are going to hire you to work with these brands are the same people who run these brands' social medias. So they are constantly on Facebook. They are constantly on Instagram. They are constantly on all of these social platforms looking for people like you. And so if reach out on Facebook or you reach out on Instagram and you send a message, you're likely to get a response, or at least, get on the radar, because that's where they are. That's where these media agencies are reachable. And I guarantee it's worked for me almost every single time. Anytime that I wanted to reach some agency or some brand that I wanted to work with, the first thing I would go do is go to their Facebook page and see if I could send a message. And if I could send a message, I would send my message on Facebook, because I know that the brand, the PR people, the brand people, the media people, they're constantly watching, and they're absolutely going to get that information. And obviously you can go to their websites and you can send an email. You need to follow up, right? One email is not going to do it. I guarantee you it's not going to do it. Send 2, 3 emails, follow up. Don't be annoying, okay? But you have to follow up, because like I said, they're very busy people. They get a lot of mail. And if you really want to, if you have, let's say, a very specific idea for a collaboration that you want to do with a brand, then you want to make sure that you get that point across in whatever, message or email that you're sending. But don't just reach out just because you want to work with H&M and you want some clothes. Okay, you have to have a really great idea and have a clear view of how it's going to benefit that brand for them to actually want to respond. And then this is the easiest possible way to get listed, is to submit yourself to these agencies. There are a ton of media agencies, especially now that we're nowhere near around when I first started doing this. Okay, this is an added benefit that you guys have now that is fantastic. These are influencer marketing agencies that you can go and sign up with, and you get put on their roster. You fill out their form, you link your social media account so that they can have social proof of your followings and your engagement. And then whenever your sort of specs fall within something that they're looking for, then you will automatically come up, and then they'll reach out if obviously if the brand is interested. But there's so many of them. So I'm just going to mention the ones that I know personally that I've worked with. So there's Media Kicks, there's Style Hall, there's Silkworm, there's Viral Nation, there's Higher Influence, there's Edelman, there's Socialite. I mean, there's so many. Hell, if you did a Google search for, top influencer marketing agencies, I guarantee you're going to get a shit ton of information, and just go through and start submitting yourself, because what's the worst going to happen? Nothing, right? You get in, you don't get a call. You get in and you get a call or you get an email, and that's really fantastic. So there are some absolute guidelines for you to follow, for you to be aware of how to work with influencers and also how to work with sponsors, because whether you're a business or you're an influencer, you need to know both sides of this. All right, guys, here's your actionable to do. I want you to set rates for, your blog posts, for your social amplifications, for your lives, for whatever you plan on providing as a service. I want you to put together your rate card. Aside from your rate card, I want you to put together a 1-page media kit. Now, it doesn't have to be fancy. It just needs to include the following: a short bio of yourself, your social reach, meaning what social platforms are you on and what are your numbers, your past work, if you have any, an example of maybe a collaboration that you've done, what you offer, obviously, as far as, do you do video? Do you just do blog posts? Do you do lives, etc.? And then a short blurb of why they should work with you. And then, of course, have a good, bright, happy picture of yourself. And please don't forget a way for them to contact you. You'd be amazed how many media kits and emails I've gotten from people who want to work with me that don't include any way of contacting them. Just saying, please make it accessible so that they know, one, where they can see you on social or your website or your blog, and how they can reach you either by phone or by email. All right, guys, here's the question. Hi, Mimi. How did you start working with sponsors? I thought it was a very fitting question for this episode, and I thought it was funny that it came in about 2 days ago. And so I thought, okay, let me answer. So, full disclosure, like I said earlier, in the beginning, I did not ever pitch myself to any sponsors. I never reached out. Had I had what you have now as far as the marketing agencies available to me then when I started, I would have absolutely done that. Absolutely would have done that. But I didn't. So, for me, it sort of just showed up in my inbox one day. And that's sort of when I was like, oh, wait a minute, brands want to work with me. And at first I did a lot of free shit. Because like I said, I did find value in it. It put me in front of a lot of people. It gave me credibility. It definitely gave me a lot of work that I could show other brands when it came to me requesting money. And then, obviously when I did start doing the conference that I did every year, or I started doing my Passion to Profit tour, and I needed to reach out to sponsors to help cover the cost of that and to provide products for my events. Then I started to reach out, just like I told you, on Facebook, on Instagram. I would go to their websites and fill out forms, send emails, like really whatever it is that you have to do. It's so easy now. If you have LinkedIn, oh my God, LinkedIn is amazing. I pay extra for my LinkedIn account so that I can have access to whole companies and their employees, because I think it's really beneficial. But it's a fantastic way to find anybody. You want to know who runs this company? Go on LinkedIn and look it up. Really, guys, it's not that hard anymore. It used to be, but it's not that hard anymore. Now, when we do pitch, me and Norris pitch for brand development deals. We pitch for collaborative ideas and deals. We don't pitch for sponsored content, but that's just because we have greater ideas now. We have greater goals for our business. And so now, it's about doing larger projects with maybe some licensing involved and doing that sort of thing. So that's sort of where it is now. But I will say, when I did start working with sponsors, I basically did all of this. I made sure that my content was good always, because I thought that was the number one thing. If I put myself in their shoes and I wanted to hire somebody to talk about my product, I basically did what I would want them to do for me. So that's how I started working with sponsors. And then, I started collaborating on deals, and my licensing deals sort of came after that. But those are all very different things. Sponsorships are, the brands paying you either with value or with cash to talk about their product. Collaborative deals are slightly different in that sometimes it's a product that you're developing with a brand, or that you're developing with another influencer. Maybe it's a business idea where you have a partner and you guys are working together. That's a collaborative deal. And then licensing is completely different. Basically, there are different levels of licensing. So you could either sell your name or your brand or your product. Everything is sort of linked to your name. You are an ambassador of it, or you are, the face of whatever it is, or maybe you're designing. I have both a collaborative and a licensing deal with Simplicity, so that works really great for me. But there are so many different ways that you can work with brands and sponsors, and even with companies that you currently use now that, that could be very beneficial to you. So just remember to stay authentic, reach out, and don't overpromise, be on time, and do good work. Really, that's all there is. All right, guys, thanks for listening. Remember, in order for your business to succeed, it must be the shit. It needs to solve a problem, help them get past their current stage, earn respect, and build trust. I'm out.